Hello, I am John McCooch from WSOU News, and I have the pleasure of being joined alongside Maggie Rose Macar, the founder of Zant app, as well as Logan Kurdes, the marketing director for Zant. And the short version, I will tell you about Zant, and I'll let them tell you the rest. Zant is an app that provides mental health resources and counseling with a focus kind of on college students as well, as they do get a discount on this platform. But first, how are you guys doing?
Doing great.
Doing good, caffeine fueled, ready to rock and roll.
As always, as we always are.
Mhm.
But first off, just basic. What is Zant?
Yeah, absolutely. So Zant is a mental health platform. We're an app. Right now we're in iOS. 2 weeks from now we'll be on Android devices and really pushing that live this December. But what app does is we're focused on specialty categories, so specialty focus areas, not just traditional mental health. We kind of revitalized the opportunity to work with traditional mental health with over 25 different specialty providers that range from everything like stress, burnout, addiction, recovery, et cetera. And we do that for students at $25 a session. And we're focused on making sure that there's absolutely no roadblocks to get support. It's $0 to access and download. It's $0 for your first session. So we made it as simple as possible for easily accessible mental health care.
All right, and where did the idea for this app kind of come from?
Yeah, so actually, so about 6.5 years, it'll be 7 years this January, I lost a very, very close friend of mine to suicide. And when that happened in my life, it just changed everything for me. I was this young person who graduated high school a year and a half early. I was in college while working on the Upper West Side in Manhattan. So I was traveling from New York City back to New Jersey for school. And at that point in my life, I was very on the go. I was supporting myself financially. All of a sudden, I get the worst phone call of my life, which was that my friend passed away. And that journey obviously was a very long journey for me. I was feeling anxiety, depression. I had my first panic attack outside in the streets of New York City, trying to figure out how to respond to the news I got. And coming home that day, it wasn't as easy as just leaving work and going home and trying to start that coping process. It was walking out to the 72nd subway, station, taking the subway to the train, taking the train to my car to finally come home. A lot of thinking, a lot of denial started to kick in. And it was really hard for me to wrap my brain around the fact that he was really gone until his funeral. When that happened, it wasn't all of a sudden, boom, let's create this thing that can help people. But I actually started to just decline myself. I had this full length mirror in my bedroom, and I actually remember looking at myself thinking, like, this was not me. I was having trouble going to work. I was having trouble going to school. That meant sacrificing my income. That meant sacrificing my opportunities. It was just not me. And I remember I kept saying that to myself, and I realized I had to go online and I had to find support. So I couldn't go to my friends. I couldn't go to my family. There was a lot of stigma. Keep in mind, this was about 7 years ago. So things are different now, especially in our area. In New York City, New Jersey, we're talking about mental health, but there's still a really big part of this country that's not. But for us at the time, for me, I realized I have to go to Google. I endlessly searched keywords. I contacted over 50, 60 people. I had some people who said I would be on a waiting list for 6 months. I had some people who said that they would charge me $250 just to come in, just for a consultation. And then finally, I had one person, and it sounds cliche to say that, but it really was just one person who ended up contacting me and said, Maggie, listen, I can give you a free consultation. Why don't you come in? Let me see if I can actually help you. So long story short, getting there was already an accomplishment. I got there. I ended up seeing him. I cried the whole time. And at the end of the session, he said, Maggie, listen, I'm $150 a session. I would want to see you every week. In my head, as this broke college student, I heard $600 a month. And honestly, I got angry. I felt taken advantage of. I left. I was really upset. I thought I finally found something. And then all of a sudden I would have to leave that thing behind because I couldn't afford it. And so many people deal with that financial roadblock. And for me, it was just really, really real at the time. He actually called me back. And I laugh every time I say that because I almost didn't pick up the phone. And I remember being so angry. And if you knew me a little bit better, you'd know I'm really not an angry person. But I was really, really upset. And I remember thinking, what is this guy going to say to me? So I answered the phone and he said, Maggie, listen, forget the money. He said, has $10 every time you come in. And I can't lie, I was a little skeptical at first. Why did this guy all of a sudden go down to $10? But I started seeing him, and 6.5 years later, I'm still seeing him. I don't see him for $10 a session anymore. I have the privilege of paying his full rate, and I don't see him every single week, but I had the opportunity to completely eliminate a roadblock and work with somebody who helped me cope, who helped me get through that time. inspired me to take my pain into passion, went back to school, went to a different school, studied psychology, but still was surrounded by so many young people who needed support. And I remembered that urgency, feeling that sense of passion. I have to do something now. That led me down nonprofit. And then eventually, after running a nonprofit in New Jersey that was focused on $10 a session for therapy, and eventually we brought in life coaching, COVID hit. We ended up having to pivot. And then from there grew Zant. We started just running with it. We did a lot of research. We realized college students, yes, you have access to counseling services that could be maybe 3 to 6 sessions for free at the most. But what happens after that? Those rates spike up to $100 a session, $150 a session. So we knew we had to build something affordable, but we also knew that traditional therapy wasn't going to help everybody. So we focused on that specialty care market. We focused on the trauma specialists, the eating disorder mentors, the recovery addiction counselors, the stress and burnout coaches. And we said, we're going to make a one-stop shop for all of those people. And we're going to make that one-stop shop for students who really need the support to only pay $25 a session. And your first consultation was free. Eliminate all the roadblocks, make it simple, and give young people support that they need. So that's really where that came from. And we do grow our platform also for non-students. We keep the prices under $100 a session. The average right now is anywhere from $45 to $75 a session. And there's always flexibility, but we made sure that we were really mission focused on helping students and young people get the support that they needed when they needed it most.
So then how does this app kind of, obviously it's a business as well. How do
Sure.
you keep that price point? It's very impressive that you're able to keep that price point at this moment.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. So it was actually something we learned with the nonprofit. We ended up building a cap system. So we realized, especially myself, when I was calling therapists and life coaches saying, hey, could you work at $10 a session? They were saying, no, I can't do that. That's impossible. You're crazy. And so that led to me changing the question. How many people could you see at $10 a session? And the moment we did that, we changed that question, all of a sudden something shifted and people started saying, well, if I was to do that, I could take 1 client, or I could take 2 clients, 5 clients, 10 clients. And that meant building this cap system where providers had a cap. So they could say, I could take X amount of students. That's their cap. But for us, obviously coming out of COVID, $10 a session wasn't affordable for mental health providers anymore. Everybody was struggling. But what was affordable was $25 a session, especially with that first free consultation. So all of our providers, we make an agreement with them. They come into our network. They offer their first consultations for free. They're 30-minute consultations. And then we ask them, how many students can you take at $25? Now we have over 100 providers who are offering services to students at $25 a session, and they all have different caps. And what we found is that students are more likely to go and see a provider weekly rather than once a month if they can afford it at $25 a session. And so our providers are happy to build those relationships and build those long-term relationships and help in that journey, because it's not going to, whatever you're going through is not going to all of a sudden change overnight. It is a journey. It will take time. And so we had to make sure that our providers were committed to that. And for us on our end, our providers, we built an all-in-one platform for them. They manage billing, scheduling, everything in one place that normally they would have to do on their own. So they actually pay a subscription to be on our app, which allows us to cover the costs that it really costs to run this app for $0 to download, $0 to use, $0 for that first session for our students.
So then kind of as a marketing thing as well, this can kind of go to both of you also. In terms of promotion of the app and kind of letting also people realize that this is a reliable service, how has that been for all of you?
It's been going well. The crazy thing is when you talk to people, like when we go onto campuses ourselves and we're standing there, we have tables and, we're getting people, we're talking to them. They say, oh my gosh, this sounds amazing. But I haven't heard about you before. So you kind of have to play it both ways, where you're in their face when they're not looking at their screens, but also on the screens that they're looking at. But it's been great. We've had over 1,000 downloads so far. It's just really about getting the message out there that we've been in your shoes, even us two specifically. Obviously, Maggie just shared her story, but I've had mental health struggles myself, and we made this for you. We made this to help the student body all over the country, not even just Jersey or certain schools. So it's just letting everybody know that we have your back, and the providers in our platform have your back.
Then in terms of the counselors, where do they all come from? I know you've been making a lot of phone calls, like you mentioned. How and what's the plan to get more counselors, kind of getting in on this idea?
Yeah, that's actually one of my favorite questions to ask, because to a lot of people, it almost sounds close to impossible to get so many providers who would be interested at working at low rates. We realized that there were states within this country where there were high quality providers that existed who their closest opportunity to work with a young person or work within a school was miles and miles and miles away, hours away sometimes. And so that limits their opportunity to really expand their practice. And since COVID, providers are working virtually, but they're having trouble marketing themselves. They're having trouble really getting out there and building their clientele and showing their services off to their clientele and saying, hey, I can help you. So we found that that was a really big pain point for providers. We literally started putting out ads for free that cost us no money on places like Indeed and ZipRecruiter and Homebase and all of these other platforms, literally saying, hey, if you're looking to expand your clientele and you're willing to work with students and you're willing to work at low rates for non-students, this is the platform for you. We can help you manage your practice and help you get, in touch with these young people who are really in need of your services. The moment we did that in our first 2 weeks of launching free ads on these platforms, which most of them were posts, we ended up having over 4,000 applications come through. Because the truth is that these providers, they're looking for supplemental work. They're looking for side gigs. They're looking for income opportunity. And yes, working at $25 a session might not sound like an income moneymaker for our providers, but we wanted to make sure that we had providers who were passionate for the right reason, who were working in this business to help people. And so the moment we kind of put out those siren calls, we had so many people who ended up applying. We're still going through those applications. And so for us, we've been, I don't want to use the word lucky, we've been able to tap into a market of providers who are high quality providers who exist in those specialty services that maybe don't have the right marketing outlets or don't know how to market themselves. So they would rather work with us, who can manage billing, payment, schedule, and marketing in one place for a monthly fee, a monthly subscription, and then actually work with clients, because fulfillment for them isn't monetary fulfillment. It's fulfillment through helping people and helping a maximum number of people. So they'd rather take lower cost sessions, but have more people to work with than have less people to work with at more costs per session, if that makes sense. So for us, we're still going through those providers. We're also making sure we have the right ratio in our app. If we have thousands of providers on our app, but only so many students going to our app, those providers might go unnoticed. So for us, we want to make sure we have the right ratio of providers. We believe that having 100 to 300 providers and having at least 1,000 users on the app is really sufficient, because it makes sure that a user has enough providers, but not too many providers to look through. And you're using a tag system on our app to say, I'm dealing with stress, burnout, school management, etc. When you use those tags, we're helping to filter a more concentrated list of providers, and we're giving you control back to look over those providers, choose favorites, which you have a favorite button you can go back to and say, hey, these are the providers I might be interested in. And instead of us taking control and just matching you, and then maybe you don't like that person, you have to go through a rematching process. So for us, we made sure to make it simple. And with our providers, they really are Zant providers. These are people who are passionate about helping people.
And like you mentioned, you can try this for free as well. And there's a heavy student discount, like you mentioned also. How important is that to have, especially for someone, of your experience and everything? And is this something that you feel can kind of flip the mental health crisis going on currently in young people, especially college students?
Yeah, absolutely. Logan, if you want to take this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Maggie mentioned earlier, a quote unquote broke college student myself. I would work during the summers and a little bit into the fall semesters. But I commuted mostly, so there was gas prices and feeding myself because I didn't have a meal plan and things like that. And it adds up after a while, and your bank account slowly starts to drain. But we didn't want, our kind of ideology behind that discounted student price was, we don't want you to sacrifice your mental health because you have to pay to keep gas in your tank or food in your stomach just to survive in the life that you have. And we realized that students don't have, like, we all haven't started our careers yet. We're not out there making a ton of money with all this expendable income to be able to put towards our mental health. So let's make it as cheap as possible. $25 is the cap. I've met with people who student rate is $18 or maybe even a little bit less. So we realized the need was there for students to get mental health support, but in that same need was affordability, or else that's that roadblock that we were talking about. They get there and they go, oh, look at these prices. Now I can't get any help. We want to be that one resource where the students go, oh, I could actually do this. And then they start their journey and don't hold themselves back from, not suffering with whatever they're dealing with.
And has there been any idea of maybe working directly with colleges, as maybe they can offer some sort of mental health resource through this app? Is that some sort of possibility?
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely. Our biggest goal actually is to expand to colleges. Let's be honest, there right now in the country, especially since COVID, there is a ratio issue between counselors and students. On average, there's a one counselor to 3,500 students who need that counselor at colleges and universities that are at medium to large sizes. And so when you look at that, you realize these schools, they're really struggling to offer the support that students need. But even if they went out and hired 10, 20, 30 more counselors, are those counselors really focused on special areas like trauma, eating disorders, recovery? Are they really going to be able to help that person besides maybe a generic conversation, or really going through, that traditional mental health loop where a person really needs a specialist? The truth is, no, they don't have specialty service focus areas. They don't have providers who exist across that spectrum. And that's not putting blame on anybody. That's not saying that the school, has a problem that is intentional. It's saying that we can be that digital extension that students also trust, because we're a third party. We're focused on the students. You're not going to get reprimanded because you open up to a provider on our app. This is confidential. This is safe. So we want to expand to colleges and universities, and we want to help college students on a much larger scale. We want to be downloaded on every single Chromebook and every single iPad and every single phone possible, especially for students, so that even if you don't need it today, when you do need it, because unfortunately life happens, things happen, when you do need it, you know where to go, and you don't have to go through a lengthy survey to hit a paywall that's $60 a week. You get in for free. There's no roadblocks, there's no hassle. So to answer your question, yes, of course, we want to expand to colleges across the country.
And lastly, this one goes out for both of you.
Sure.
What ideas do you have for Zant in the next few years, whether that's for the user experience, for counselors, or just in general promotion as well?
Uh-oh, top secret information.
If you're willing, you don't have to.
I can share with you that we're actually working on something right now that I would definitely use the word groundbreaking. We're really excited to incorporate it. We'll be announcing it after the new year, probably more towards the spring. But we're starting to bring in different conversational approaches to helping a student the moment they download the app. So no more entering a million screens to get from A to Z. We want to make this as conversational from the very beginning and really help you find the right providers. We are expanding our providers. We've had people request things like hypnosis. We've had people request things like naturopathic physicians, which are physicians who use alternative care to really help anything from physical to mental well-being. So yoga, meditation, things like that. We're looking to really be that one-stop shop where if you are struggling or questioning, you have options and you don't have to pay just to see those options. So it is something that we're working on. I think that's a good little teaser for some of the exciting stuff coming after the new year. Logan, I don't know if you want to mention anything.
I mean, in the coming future, of course, I know we were just talking about schools, but because we built the app with students in mind, with ourselves in mind, definitely being in as many colleges and universities as possible across the country. Because I know here in Jersey, everyone's kind of packed in like sardines, and you can drive 2 minutes to the grocery store to TJ Maxx or something. Out west, like you were saying before, it's hours to get to any kind of health resource, and the closest one could just be a hospital with like a registered nurse or something like that. So if we can get into those colleges and universities and have our mental health services all over the country dotted throughout, then we can help as many people as possible. And it would just be, I mean, I think we would feel great about it. I think we would feel like we're really achieving our mission and actually helping, people our age, people struggling with the same things that we do.
Yeah, I think the last thing I would add to that is we have this opportunity. And for us as a mission focused company, we said, and startup, we said, listen, our big goal is to impact just one life, right? It's just to impact that one life. And all of a sudden, we have this opportunity to impact thousands of lives. And so for us, we're not going to stop at just one. We want to impact as many lives as possible with this and really help people get the support they need, break that stigma around mental health, especially specialty services, and just help eliminate the roadblocks to support.
All right. And finally, is there anything else that you would like to add to this?
I would say definitely if you're struggling or questioning, you think maybe you want to check this out, go to the iOS App Store, download Zant. It's literally ZANT. Go to our website, www.zant.app, and follow us as the Android version goes live in the next month. But also, if you're struggling with something, it's cliche to say, I know you probably hear it all the time now, but you're not alone. There are a lot of people who are struggling. There are a lot of people who are going through things. You don't have to do this alone. We have providers who, if you do want to do this on your own journey, which this is your journey, then you can do that by downloading the app, not seeing a single roadblock, and just looking for people who could actually support you. So don't hesitate to go to that app. It's $0 to download. You have nothing to lose. It's $0 for your first session.
All right. Well, thank you both so very much for taking the time out of your day to sit down and talk about this app. A phenomenal idea, especially given our current situation in this world. Maggie Rose and Logan, thank you so much for joining. This has been WSOU News. I am John Mokuch. Zant app is available in your app stores, as we all just mentioned. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day.